D'abord, Monsieur le Président, je remercie.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleagues for their participation in this emergency debate, which is a very important one. As parliamentarians, we have an obligation to ensure the security and safety of the young Aboriginals of Canada and all youth throughout Canada. As parliamentarians, we have an obligation to work together to find a solution to this tragic crisis and to work with these communities, with their leaders, with the youth themselves and their families. And particularly, as the Parliament of Canada, we must put in place the resources necessary to support these communities and help find a long-term solution.
Colleagues for being here. And at the beginning, I would like to pause and thank particularly Chief Bruce Shashish, the Council in Attawapiskat, the teachers, the frontline workers, the police, the leadership in the region from Grand Chief Jonathan Solomon, our Anishinaabe Nation. This isn't just particularly about Attawapiskat. This is about who we are as Canadians and our whole nation. And I want to particularly thank the young people, because this is the greatest tragedy that we're discussing, is the image of these helpless communities and these lost children. But if you travel in these communities and you see their faces and you see the potential, you see the greatest tragedy in this nation is that we would waste a generation of children. What squander of potential. I think of Shannon Kustashian, the woman who inspired me more than anybody except my wife, who had to lead a national fight at age 13 just to get a school. Chelsea Edwards, who took a fight to the United Nations when she was living in boarding houses far from her home. I think of all the young people who leave school at home at 13 to live in boarding houses in Sioux Lookout and Timmins because they believe there's a better future, and we failed them, and it has to stop. And I think tonight might be the beginning of a change in our country, and that's what I'm asking us all to come together to do. So what do we need in the short term? We have to end the Band-Aids, the emergency flights in, the hand-wringing. This isn't new. 1999 coroner's jury of Selena Sakani in Neskantanga, 41 jury recommendations. What happened? 2008, the horrific Kashechewan fire and inquest, 80 recommendations. What happened to them? They're still sitting on the shelves. The 2011 Pakanjakum suicide crisis that was so devastating, and the coroner's report with 100 recommendations. What happened to them? They're still sitting there. And so, up to us, it's no longer possible to say, well, we didn't know, or we don't know, and we'll find out. We know what the problem is. From a parliamentary point of view, we have to end the nickel and diming of services. That when we say to a young person in crisis, we're going to medevac them out on a flight, that is in an extreme. Most times they're left on their own. But if we do medevac them out, well, then we'll send them back in 2 days later because, hey, nobody in government is going to pay for the treatment center that they need. We've got to end the culture of deniability, where children and young people are denied the mental health services on a routine basis as a matter of course by the federal government. Cindy Blackstock points out in this budget that the children are being failed because of the child welfare issues. We have to close that gap. That's an issue of political will that we could change tonight. That we have to say, where are the healthcare dollars? Because we know this crisis has been happening and there's no new augmented funds. We have to work with our frontline workers. I talked to the police officers, the incredible police officers at NAPS, who suffer the PTSD because they're the ones who go in and deal with the children. We have to augment them and give them the support so that we can keep the drugs out of the communities and build it at the grassroots. So what are our long-term solutions? Well, the solutions come from the communities, from their culture, from their incredible relationship to the land that most Canadians have no concept of how deep that goes. It's not going to be the outsiders who come in. We need to put the resources there to help because they know where the solutions are. We need to get in Mushkegowuk territory, a mobile crisis unit, so that we can go in and the communities can start deal with this themselves. We need healing centres and treatment centres, but I want to say, we have lots of them actually across the country. They're just sitting empty because governments built them and never to put a dime in to fund the resources so they could actually staff them. So for the ones that we have, these sitting empty, we have one in Attawapiskat. Where are the resources, the mental health dollars to have those local healing and treatment centres for the young people when they need them? We have to also, Mr. Speaker, talk to the youth. And maybe this is a moment to think outside the box. You know, when the body of little Alvin Curdy was found on the shores, it shocked the world and it shamed Canadians. And Canadians stood up and said, we will do whatever. All of civil society came together. Well, this is our moment. You know, I'm thinking tonight, young Sarah Hukama, who's left home to go to school in Timmins, she wrote me a message. She said, I wish I could be there with the young back home, my cousins and my peers, but I can't right now. But I'm seeing the leaders standing up, and I'm proud to be who I am, even though it's not easy. I want us to build a relationship with the government. This is the voice of the youth speaking. Abigail Magnus of Constant Lakes First Nation. She wrote me this message tonight. She said, I want to be part of the teams that will bring light in the dark time. Let me know how I can help so we can plan an assessment to end the suicides in our communities. Where is the will to take from the youth and start regional and national teams where the youth are empowered to come to this Parliament and tell us what change should look like? Because the days of Indian Affairs and Health Canada dictating to them how the resources are going to be spent, that is a failed model, and it has to end. And I want to thank my colleagues in the House for their goodwill on this, because this is not a partisan issue. As parents, as adults, this is our primary responsibility. It is the fundamental responsibility. And we can't use this in any cheap partisan manner. There have been mistakes. There has been a 150-year system of systemic discrimination and racist denial. But coming together, we can change that. And that's what I'm asking for tonight, is I want to see political will, because what I'm hearing in the communities is they don't want another declaration of emergency, because we've lost count of the declarations of emergency where there's been lip service, or it's been ignored, or it's been denied. They are tired of that. They want the nation-to-nation relationship. And it begins when we get past the talk. And it begins when we get past the rhetoric and say, we will commit. We will put that money into the health services that have been regularly denied. We will stop fighting children when they need access to proper mental health services. We will deal with the crisis in education, where in my communities like Kashechewan, the children are still going to school in rotten down portables. We have to end that, because the greatest resource we have in this country, Mr. Speaker, it isn't the gold, it isn't the oil, it's the children. And that is the day that we recognize that is the day that we will be the nation that we were meant to be. And we will have this journey together for as long as the rivers run, and as long as the grass grows, and as long as the sun shines. That is our commitment to each other, and I'm asking everyone tonight to follow through and make it true. Thank you. Merci, Miigwech.